Imagine leaving an honest note on a stranger's car after a minor accident, only to discover that stranger holds your entire future in her hands. Sarah Martinez thought she was just doing the right thing when she left that apologetic note on a dented BMW. She had no idea the car belonged to her new boss, the intimidating CEO, who would soon turn her world upside down. The parking lot was cramped, typical for this working-class neighborhood. Sarah was already running late, her daughter Emma chattering in the back seat about her upcoming school play. I fumbled with my keys, Emma's backpack sliding off my shoulder for the third time this morning. The parking lot outside Lincoln Elementary was a nightmare, cars squeezed together like sardines, parents rushing to drop off their kids before the first bell. "Mommy, you're gonna make me late." Emma bounced in her booster seat, her gap-toothed smile infectious despite my stress. 2 minutes, baby. Just let me... The keys slipped from my fingers, clattering onto the asphalt. I bent down to grab them, and that's when it happened. The sound of metal scraping metal made my stomach drop to my shoes. Oh no, oh no, oh no. I straightened up, staring at the sleek black BMW I'd just backed into. My beat-up Honda Civic had left a small but noticeable dent in the luxury car's pristine bumper. My hands started shaking. This car probably cost more than I made in 2 years. Emma pressed her face against the window. "Mommy, what happened? Just stay in the car, sweetheart." I walked around to inspect the damage, my heart hammering against my ribs. The BMW's bumper had a scrape about 6 inches long, the kind that would cost hundreds to fix. Hundreds I didn't have. I looked around the parking lot, hoping to spot the owner. Empty. Of course it was empty. The universe had a twisted sense of humor when it came to my life. I thought about driving away, God help me. I actually considered it for about 30 seconds. But Emma was watching, and I couldn't teach her that running away was okay, even when you're scared. Even when you're broke. Even when you're already drowning. I dug through my purse, finding a crumpled receipt and a pen that barely worked. My hands trembled as I wrote, "I'm so sorry about the damage to your car. I was backing out and didn't see you there. I know this is expensive to fix, and I don't have much money, but I want to do the right thing. Please call me and we can figure something out. I'm really truly sorry. Sarah Martinez." I added my phone number and tucked the note under the windshield wiper, my chest tight with anxiety. "Mommy, I'm gonna be late," Emma called out. "Coming, baby." I slid back into my car, my hands still shaking as I started the engine. The drive to Emma's school was a blur of worry. How much would this cost? Could I set up a payment plan? Would they sue me? The questions spiraled in my mind like a tornado. After dropping Emma off with a kiss and a promise to pick her up on time, I drove to my new job at Meridian Industries. Today was only my 3rd day as an administrative assistant, and I couldn't afford to be late, not when this job was the first stable income I'd had in months. The Meridian building was all glass and steel, intimidating in its corporate perfection. I'd never worked somewhere so fancy before. The lobby had marble floors and a reception desk that looked like it belonged in a 5-star hotel. I hurried to the elevator, my cheap heels clicking against the marble. The other employees looked so polished, so put together. I smoothed down my thrift store blazer and tried to look like I belonged. The elevator dinged, and I stepped inside with 3 other people. A man in an expensive suit was talking loudly on his phone about quarterly projections. A woman with perfect makeup scrolled through her tablet. They all looked like they'd stepped out of a business magazine. I stared at my reflection in the elevator's polished walls. My brown hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, my makeup minimal but neat. I looked tired, which wasn't surprising since I'd been up until midnight, helping Emma with her homework and then doing laundry. The elevator stopped at the 15th floor. My floor. I stepped out into a maze of cubicles and glass offices, the hum of productivity filling the air. "Sarah!" My supervisor, Janet, waved me over to her desk. She was a kind woman in her 50s with graying hair and laugh lines around her eyes. "How are you settling in?" "Great, thank you. I really appreciate this opportunity." I meant it. This job paid more than my previous 3 jobs combined, and it came with health insurance. For Emma and me, it was a lifeline. "Wonderful. I have some filing for you to catch up on, and then Ms. Chen wants to see you in her office around 10. My blood ran cold. Ms. Chen? The CEO? Janet nodded. Don't look so terrified. It's just a standard meet and greet with new employees. She likes to welcome everyone personally. I'd heard about Victoria Chen, the new CEO who'd taken over Meridian Industries 6 months ago. She was young, brilliant, and reportedly ruthless. The kind of woman who could fire you with a smile and not lose a minute of sleep over it. I spent the next hour organizing files, my mind wandering back to the BMW in the parking lot. What if the owner had already seen the note? What if they were calling right now, demanding payment I couldn't afford? My phone buzzed. Unknown number. My heart stopped. This was it. The BMW owner, ready to destroy my life over a stupid parking lot accident. I answered with a shaky voice. Hello? Is this Sarah Martinez? The voice was crisp, professional, with just a hint of an accent I couldn't place. Female. Yes, this is Sarah. I believe you left a note on my car this morning. I closed my eyes, gripping the phone tighter. Yes, I did. I'm so sorry about the damage. I know it's going to be expensive to fix, but I want to make it right. Could we maybe work out a payment plan? There was a long pause. Then, we'll discuss it. Soon, the line went dead. I stared at my phone, my hands trembling. The woman's voice had been cold, businesslike. She hadn't yelled or threatened to sue me, but somehow that made it worse. There was something ominous about her calm tone. Sarah? Janet appeared at my cubicle. Ms. Chen is ready to see you now. I stood on unsteady legs, smoothing down my skirt. Okay. Her office is on the top floor, right? That's right. Take the elevator to the 30th floor. You can't miss it. The elevator ride to the top floor felt like it lasted forever. My palms were sweaty, and I kept thinking about the phone call. The BMW owner wanted to meet soon. How soon? And how much money was she going to demand? The 30th floor was a different world. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking view of the city. The carpet was thick and plush, the kind that probably cost more per square foot than my monthly rent. A receptionist with perfect blonde hair smiled at me. You must be Sarah Martinez. Ms. Chen is waiting for you, right through those doors. I walked toward the imposing double doors, my heart pounding so hard I was sure everyone could hear it. I knocked softly. Come in. I pushed open the door and stepped into the most beautiful office I'd ever seen. The space was enormous, with windows on 2 sides and furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum. Behind a massive mahogany desk sat a woman who took my breath away. Victoria Chen was stunning in a way that seemed almost unfair. She had long black hair pulled back in a sleek bun, sharp cheekbones, and dark eyes that seemed to see everything. She wore a tailored black suit that probably cost more than my car. She looked up from her computer, and our eyes met. And that's when I heard the voice that made my blood turn to ice. Hello, Sarah. I believe we spoke on the phone a few minutes ago. The world tilted sideways. I gripped the doorframe to keep from falling over, my mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. I couldn't finish the sentence. My brain had short-circuited. Victoria Chen, my new CEO, the woman who held my job and my future in her perfectly manicured hands, was the owner of the BMW I'd damaged this morning. She gestured to the chair across from her desk, with the same hand that had probably signed my employment contract. Please, sit down. I stumbled forward, my legs feeling like jelly. The leather chair was so expensive I was afraid to touch it with my thrift store clothes. Victoria watched me with those dark, unreadable eyes, her expression giving nothing away. I have to say, she said, her voice smooth as silk, your timing is impeccable. Ms. Chen, I can explain. She held up a hand, silencing me instantly. No need to explain. I read your note. Very honest. The way she said honest made it sound like a character flaw. I twisted my hands in my lap, my palms slick with sweat. I know this looks terrible. I know you probably think I'm some kind of scammer or what I think, Victoria interrupted, leaning back in her chair. Is that you're in a very interesting position? My stomach dropped. Are you going to fire me? Something flickered across her face. Surprise, maybe? Fire you? For what? For damaging your car? For being careless? For Sarah. My name on her lips made me stop talking immediately. You left a note. You called to make it right. In my experience, most people would have driven away and pretended it never happened. I blinked at her, confused. But I damaged your car. Yes, you did. She opened a drawer and pulled out the crumpled note I'd left on her windshield. My handwriting looked childish and desperate on the expensive paper of her desk. Tell me, how exactly did you plan to pay for the repairs? Heat flooded my cheeks. I was hoping we could work out a payment plan. Maybe $50 a month? I know it's not much, but the damage will cost approximately $800 to repair. $800. I felt the blood drain from my face. At $50 a month, it would take me over a year to pay it off. A year of choosing between fixing her car and buying Emma new shoes when she outgrew her old ones. I see, Victoria said, watching my face carefully. That's more than you expected. I nodded, not trusting my voice. She stood up and walked to the window, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor. From behind, she looked like a figure from a magazine, tall, elegant, untouchable. Tell me about yourself, Sarah. Why did you apply for this job? The question caught me off guard. I needed the work. The pay is good. And the benefits. My daughter needs health insurance. Your daughter? She turned around, leaning against the window. The city skyline framed her like a painting. How old is she? 7. Her name is Emma. I couldn't help but smile when I said her name, even in this nightmare situation. And her father? The question hit like a slap. He's not in the picture. Victoria nodded slowly, as if filing away this information. So, it's just you and Emma? Yes. And this job is important to you? It's everything to me. The words came out more desperate than I intended. She walked back to her desk, moving with the grace of someone who'd never doubted her place in the world. I have a proposition for you. My heart hammered against my ribs. A proposition? The damage to my car? I'll forget about it. I stared at her, sure I'd misheard. You'll... what? Forget about it. No payment plan? No debt hanging over your head. She sat down, her eyes never leaving mine. In exchange, I want something from you. Here it comes, I thought, the catch. There was always a catch. What do you want? I whispered. I want you to have dinner with me. I blinked. Dinner? Tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, I'll pick you up. I don't understand. Why would you want to have dinner with me? Something shifted in her expression, a crack in that perfect composure. Let's just say you've piqued my curiosity. I thought about Emma, about the babysitter I'd have to find, about how weird this whole situation was. Ms. Chen, I don't think... Victoria, she corrected. And before you say no, consider this. $800 or one dinner. Which sounds more manageable. She had me, and she knew it. I couldn't afford to say no, and we both knew it. Just dinner? I asked. Just dinner. I took a shaky breath. Okay, yes, thank you. She smiled then, the first real smile I'd seen from her. It transformed her entire face, making her look younger, more human. Excellent. I'll need your address. I gave her my address, watching as she wrote it down in handwriting that was as elegant as everything else about her. One more thing, she said as I stood to leave. This arrangement stays between us. I don't make a habit of socializing with employees. Of course, I won't tell anyone. I walked toward the door on unsteady legs, my mind reeling. At the threshold, I turned back. Ms. Chen? Victoria? Why are you doing this? She looked up from her computer, and for just a moment, I saw something vulnerable in her eyes. Something lonely. Maybe I'm curious about someone who leaves honest notes on strangers' cars. I left her office in a daze, taking the elevator down to my floor with my head spinning. Janet looked up as I approached my cubicle. How did it go with Ms. Chen? Fine, I managed. She's very professional. She is that. Brilliant woman, but intimidating as hell. I've worked here for 15 years and she still makes me nervous. I sat down at my desk, staring at my computer screen without seeing it. Victoria Chen. Beautiful. Powerful. Untouchable Victoria Chen. Wanted to have dinner with me. A single mom who shopped at thrift stores and drove a car, held together with prayer and duct tape. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Wear something nice tomorrow. I stared at the message, my heart doing strange things in my chest. Something nice? The nicest thing I owned was the blazer I was wearing right now. The rest of the day passed in a blur. I filed papers, answered phones, and tried to act normal while my mind raced with questions. What did Victoria want from me? Why dinner? And why did the thought of seeing her again make my stomach flutter with something that definitely wasn't fear? At 5 o'clock, I packed up my things and headed for the elevator. As the doors opened, I found myself face to face with Victoria. She'd changed from her business suit into a long coat that probably cost more than my monthly salary. "Sarah," she said, stepping into the elevator beside me. Victoria. Her name felt strange on my tongue. We rode down in silence, the air between us charged with something I couldn't name. When the doors opened in the lobby, she turned to me. "Tomorrow night," she said quietly. "Don't overthink it." Then she walked away, her heels clicking against the marble floor, leaving me standing there with my mouth slightly open and my heart racing. I drove home in a daze, picking up Emma from after-school care and listening to her chatter about her day. But my mind kept drifting back to Victoria's office, to the way she'd looked at me, to the dinner that was less than 24 hours away. That night, after Emma was asleep, I stood in front of my closet staring at my pathetic collection of clothes. What did someone wear to dinner with a CEO? What did someone wear when they had no idea what they were walking into? I pulled out a simple black dress I'd bought for job interviews, holding it up to the mirror. It was plain, conservative, nothing special, but it was the best I had. As I hung it back up, my phone buzzed with another text. "I'm looking forward to tomorrow." And I stared at the message until the screen went dark, my reflection looking back at me from the black surface. What had I gotten myself into? I spent the entire next day at work trying to act normal while my stomach churned with anxiety. Every time I saw Victoria's name on an email or heard someone mention the CEO, my heart would skip a beat. At lunch, I called my neighbor Mrs. Rodriguez to ask if she could watch Emma for a few hours that evening. "A date?" she asked, her voice brightening with excitement. "Sarah, that's wonderful. You deserve some happiness." "It's not a date," I said quickly. "It's just dinner with someone from work." "Mija, when a woman asks you to dinner, it's a date. Trust me. I've been married for 35 years. I didn't have the heart to tell her that the woman asking me to dinner was my boss, or that this whole situation felt more like a business transaction than anything romantic. The rest of the afternoon crawled by. I kept checking my phone, half hoping Victoria would cancel, half terrified she would. At 4:30, Janet stopped by my desk. "You can head out early if you want," she said. "It's been a slow day." I thanked her and gathered my things, my hands shaking slightly as I packed up my purse. In the elevator, I caught my reflection in the polished walls. I looked pale, nervous, like someone heading to their execution rather than dinner. At home, I helped Emma with her homework and made her favorite dinner: mac and cheese with cut-up hot dogs. She chattered about her upcoming school play, how she was going to be a tree in the forest scene. "Mommy, why are you so quiet?" she asked, twirling cheese around her fork. "Just thinking about work, baby." "Is your new job hard?" I looked at my daughter, my beautiful, innocent daughter who trusted me to take care of everything. "Sometimes. But it's a good job. It helps us pay for things we need." She nodded seriously, as if she understood the weight of adult responsibilities. Sometimes I forgot she was only 7. She'd grown up too fast, seen too much of my struggles. At 6:15, Mrs. Rodriguez knocked on our door. She was a sweet woman in her 60s who'd lived next door since Emma was born. She'd helped me through some of my darkest moments, watching Emma when I had to work late or when I was too sick to function. "You look beautiful, Mija," she said, taking in my black dress and the small amount of makeup I'd managed to apply. "Thank you for doing this on such short notice." "Nonsense. Emma and I are going to have fun, aren't we, Pequeña?" Emma hugged my legs. "Have fun on your date, Mommy. It's not a—" I started, then gave up. "Be good for Mrs. Rodriguez, okay?" At exactly 7 o'clock, a sleek black car pulled up outside my apartment building, not the BMW I'd damaged. This was something even more expensive, with tinted windows and chrome that gleamed under the streetlights. I watched from my window as Victoria stepped out of the driver's seat. She wore a deep blue dress that hugged her curves perfectly, her hair loose around her shoulders instead of pulled back in its usual severe bun. She looked softer somehow, more human. I grabbed my purse and headed downstairs, my cheap heels echoing in the stairwell. Victoria was waiting by the car, and when she saw me, her expression shifted to something I couldn't read. "You look lovely," she said, opening the passenger door for me. "Thank you." I slid into the car, immediately overwhelmed by the smell of expensive leather and her perfume. Something subtle and sophisticated that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. She got in beside me, and suddenly the car felt very small. I was hyper-aware of everything. The way her hands looked on the steering wheel, the way her dress rode up slightly when she sat down, the way she glanced at me when she thought I wasn't looking. "Where are we going?" I asked as she pulled away from the curb. "A place I think you'll like. Nothing too fancy." We drove through the city in comfortable silence, the radio playing soft jazz. I watched the buildings pass by, trying to calm my nerves. This was just dinner. Just two people having a meal together. It didn't have to be complicated, but everything about Victoria Chen was complicated. She pulled up in front of a small Italian restaurant I'd never seen before. It was tucked between a bookstore and a flower shop, with warm light spilling from its windows and the kind of intimate atmosphere that screamed romantic dinner. "This doesn't look like nothing too fancy," I said. Victoria smiled. "It's my favorite place in the city. The owner, Marco, makes the best osso buco you've ever tasted." Inside, the restaurant was even more intimate than it had looked from the street. There were maybe 15 tables, all with white tablecloths and flickering candles. A man with graying hair and kind eyes approached us immediately. "Victoria," he exclaimed, kissing her on both cheeks. "Your usual table?" "Please, Marco. This is Sarah." Marco turned to me with a warm smile. "Any friend of Victoria's is family here. Welcome." He led us to a corner table with a view of the small garden behind the restaurant. Victoria ordered wine, something Italian with a name I couldn't pronounce. And I tried not to think about how much it probably cost. "You come here often?" I asked, settling into my chair. "Every few weeks. Marco and his wife Rosa opened this place 20 years ago. It's peaceful here." I looked around at the other diners. Couples mostly, talking quietly over their meals. "It's beautiful." "You seem surprised." "I guess I expected somewhere more corporate, more like you." Victoria raised an eyebrow. "More like me?" I felt heat rise in my cheeks. "I didn't mean that in a bad way. I just meant, fancy. Intimidating." "Do I intimidate you, Sarah?" The question hung between us like a challenge. I thought about lying, about giving her the answer she probably expected. Instead, I decided on honesty. Terrify might be a better word. She laughed. A real laugh. Not the polite corporate chuckle I'd heard in meetings. Good. I'd hate to think I was losing my touch. The wine arrived, and Victoria poured for both of us. I took a sip, trying not to wince at the unfamiliar taste. It was probably amazing, but I was more of a beer from a bottle kind of person. "Tell me about Emma," Victoria said, settling back in her chair. "What do you want to know?" "Everything. What's she like? What does she want to be when she grows up? What makes her laugh?" The questions caught me off guard. I'd expected small talk about work, maybe some probing about my background. I hadn't expected genuine curiosity about my daughter. She's everything," I said, my voice softening. "She's smart, funny, stubborn as hell. She wants to be a veterinarian because she loves animals. But last week she decided she might want to be a teacher instead because she likes helping people learn things. She sounds wonderful. She is. She's the best thing I've ever done." I paused, then added, "The only good thing I've ever done, really." "I doubt that's true. You don't know me very well." Victoria leaned forward, her dark eyes intense. "Then tell me. Help me know you." Something in her voice made my chest tight. "Why? Why do you want to know me?" She was quiet for a long moment, swirling the wine in her glass. Do you know what it's like to be surrounded by people all day and still feel completely alone? The question hit me like a punch to the gut. Yes, I whispered, I do. I thought you might. Our food arrived. Some kind of pasta dish that smelled incredible. But I barely noticed. I was too focused on Victoria, on the vulnerability I could see creeping into her expression. Is that why you asked me to dinner? Because you're lonely? Partly. She took a bite of her pasta, chewing thoughtfully. But also because you left that note. Do you have any idea how rare honesty is in my world? I just did what anyone would do. No, Sarah. You did what you would do. Most people would have driven away and hoped no one saw them. We ate in comfortable silence for a while, the tension between us shifting into something warmer, more intimate. I found myself relaxing, actually enjoying the food and the wine, and the way Victoria's face looked in the candlelight. Can I ask you something? I said as we finished our main course. Of course. Why aren't you married? I mean, you're beautiful, successful, obviously wealthy. I would have thought. Victoria's expression shuddered slightly. I was. Married, I mean. It didn't work out. I'm sorry. Don't be. It was a long time ago. She signaled for the check. What about you? Emma's father? My stomach clenched. He left when I told him I was pregnant. Said he wasn't ready to be a father. His loss. The simple statement, said with such conviction, made my throat tight with emotion. We left the restaurant and walked slowly back to Victoria's car. The night air was cool, and I shivered slightly in my thin dress. Here. Victoria shrugged out of her jacket and draped it around my shoulders before I could protest. The jacket smelled like her perfume and something else. Something warm and distinctly Victoria. I pulled it tighter around myself, hyper-aware of her closeness as we walked. At the car, she turned to face me. I had a good time tonight. So did I. It was true, which surprised me. Would you like to do it again? My heart hammered against my ribs. Victoria, I don't think about it, she said softly. That's all I'm asking. She drove me home in comfortable silence, the city lights blurring past the windows. When we pulled up in front of my building, she got out to walk me to the door. Thank you for dinner, I said, starting to take off her jacket. Keep it, she said. You can give it back to me at work. We stood there for a moment, the space between us charged with possibility. I thought she might kiss me, and I wasn't sure what I would do if she tried. Instead, she reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, her fingers gentle against my skin. Good night, Sarah. Good night. I watched her drive away, then climbed the stairs to my apartment, my mind reeling. Mrs. Rodriguez took one look at my face and smiled knowingly. Good date? She asked. I thought about Victoria's laugh, about the way she'd looked at me across the dinner table, about the jacket that still smelled like her perfume. Yeah, I said softly. It was. But as I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was standing at the edge of a cliff, about to jump into something that would change everything. The next morning at work felt surreal. I hung Victoria's jacket in my cubicle, running my fingers over the expensive fabric and trying to process what had happened the night before. Every time someone walked by, I was sure they could see the dinner written all over my face. At 10:30, my phone rang. Internal call. Sarah Martinez, could you come to my office, please? Victoria's voice was crisp, professional. No hint of the woman who had shared wine and stories with me just 12 hours ago. Of course. I'll be right up. I took the elevator to the 30th floor. Victoria's jacket folded carefully in my arms. The receptionist smiled and waved me through to Victoria's office. I knocked and entered to find Victoria standing by her window, looking out at the city. She'd changed back into her CEO armor. Severe black suit, hair pulled back in that intimidating bun, every inch the powerful executive. You wanted to see me? I said, closing the door behind me. She turned around, and for just a moment, I saw something soft in her eyes before the professional mask slipped back into place. I have a proposition for you, she said, walking back to her desk. My stomach dropped. Another one? I need a personal assistant, someone I can trust with confidential matters, someone who can handle travel, late nights, weekend work. She sat down, her fingers steepled in front of her. The position comes with a significant salary increase and better benefits. I stared at her, my mind racing. You're offering me a promotion? I'm offering you an opportunity. Because of last night? Something flickered across her face. Because you're qualified and I need someone I can depend on. I set her jacket on the chair across from her desk, my hands trembling slightly. Victoria, I don't think this is a good idea. Why not? Because... I struggled to find the words. Because of what's happening between us. Because I don't want people to think I slept my way into a better job. Victoria's expression hardened. Is that what you think happened? I don't know what to think. She stood up abruptly, walking around the desk to stand in front of me. Let me be very clear about something, Sarah. I don't mix business with pleasure, ever. This job offer has nothing to do with our dinner last night. Then why? Because my current assistant is moving to London with her husband, and I need a replacement. Because you're smart, reliable, and discreet. Because in the 3 days you've worked here, you've impressed everyone you've worked with. Her voice softened slightly. And because I think you could use the opportunity. I looked into her dark eyes, searching for any sign of deception. All I saw was sincerity and something that looked almost like hurt. What would the job entail exactly? Managing my calendar? Handling correspondence, coordinating travel, attending meetings to take notes, some evening and weekend work when necessary. She paused. The salary would be $85,000 a year. My knees nearly buckled. $85,000, more than double what I was making now. Enough to move Emma and me out of our cramped apartment. Enough to stop worrying about every grocery bill and doctor's visit. I need time to think about it, I said. Of course. Take the weekend. Let me know Monday morning. I picked up her jacket, holding it out to her. Thank you for dinner last night, and for this. She took the jacket, her fingers brushing mine for just a moment. Sarah? Yes? Whatever you decide about the job, it won't affect the other thing. What's happening between us? My heart hammered against my ribs. What is happening between us? She stepped closer, close enough that I could smell her perfume. Close enough to see the flecks of gold in her dark eyes. I don't know, she said softly. But I'd like to find out. Before I could respond, her phone rang. She glanced at it and sighed. I have to take this. Think about the offer, Sarah. I think it could be good for both of us. I left her office in a daze, my mind spinning with possibilities and complications. Back at my cubicle, I tried to focus on work, but all I could think about was Victoria's offer, and the way she'd looked at me when she said she wanted to find out what was happening between us. At lunch, I called my sister Maria. 85,000? She shrieked into the phone. Sarah, that's amazing. You have to take it. It's complicated, Maria. How is it complicated? It's more money, better benefits, a chance to advance your career. What's complicated about that? I couldn't tell her about Victoria, about the dinner, about the way my heart raced every time I saw her. It's just a big change. Change is good, Hermana. You've been struggling for too long. Emma deserves stability, and you deserve success. She was right, of course, but she didn't know about the other factors at play. That evening, I picked up Emma from after-school care and took her to the park. She ran around on the playground while I sat on a bench, trying to sort through my thoughts. Mommy, push me, Emma called from the swings. I walked over and gave her a gentle push, watching her hair fly in the wind. She was so beautiful, so full of life and possibility. She deserved everything I could give her. Mommy, why do you look sad? She asked, slowing down. I'm not sad, baby. Just thinking. About what? About work. About whether I should take a new job. Emma twisted around to look at me. Would it be a better job? It would pay more money, which means we could move to a nicer apartment, maybe one with a yard where you could play. Her eyes lit up. Really? Could we get a dog? I laughed, despite my anxiety. Maybe. Someday. Then you should take the job, Mommy. If only I want a yard and a dog. That night, after Emma was asleep, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of tea and a legal pad, making a list of pros and cons. Pros. More money, better benefits, career advancement, stability for Emma. The chance to work closely with someone I was undeniably attracted to. Cons. Working closely with someone I was undeniably attracted to, the potential for gossip and speculation, the pressure of a more demanding job, the complication of mixing business with whatever was developing between Victoria and me. I stared at the list until the words blurred together. My phone buzzed with a text message. I hope you're considering the offer. You'd be perfect for the position. V. I stared at the message for a long time before typing back, I'm thinking about it. Her response came immediately. Good, sleep well, Sarah. I set the phone down and rubbed my temples. This was insane. I was a single mother from a working-class neighborhood, and Victoria Chen was a CEO who probably had an MBA from Harvard and a trust fund. We lived in different worlds. But when I closed my eyes, I could still feel the way she'd looked at me across the dinner table, could still hear the vulnerability in her voice when she'd talked about being lonely. Saturday morning, I took Emma to the farmer's market downtown. We walked among the stalls, buying fresh fruit and vegetables I could actually afford thanks to my new job. Emma chattered about school, about her friends, about the upcoming play. Mommy, look, she pointed to a stall selling flowers. Those are pretty. I followed her gaze and froze. Victoria was standing at the flower stall, talking to the vendor. She wore jeans and a simple white t-shirt, her hair loose around her shoulders. She looked younger, more relaxed, almost like a normal person. Our eyes met across the crowded market, and she smiled. My heart did that fluttering thing again. Mommy, who is that lady? Emma asked, following my gaze. Someone from work, I said, trying to keep my voice casual. Victoria finished her purchase and walked over to us, carrying a bouquet of white roses. Sarah, what a nice surprise. Her eyes moved to Emma, and her expression softened. You must be Emma. Emma hid behind my legs, suddenly shy. Hi, she whispered. Victoria crouched down to Emma's level. I've heard so much about you. Your mom tells me you're going to be a tree in your school play. Emma peeked out from behind me. How did you know that? Your mom is very proud of you. She talks about you all the time. I felt heat rise in my cheeks. When had I told Victoria about Emma's play? Are those flowers for your mommy? Emma asked, pointing to the roses. Victoria glanced up at me, something unreadable in her expression. Actually, they're for a friend. We chatted for a few more minutes before Victoria excused herself, saying she had errands to run. As she walked away, Emma tugged on my hand. I like her, Mommy. She's pretty. Yes, I said, watching Victoria disappear into the crowd. She is. That night, I made my decision. I called Victoria's cell phone, my hands shaking as I dialed. Sarah? She answered on the first ring. I'll take the job, I said before I could lose my nerve. There was a pause. Are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. Good. We'll discuss the details Monday morning. And Sarah? Yes? I'm glad you said yes. After I hung up, I sat in my quiet apartment and wondered what I'd just gotten myself into. Outside my window, the city lights twinkled like stars, and somewhere out there, Victoria Chen was probably in her expensive apartment, maybe looking at the same lights. I thought about the roses she'd been carrying, about the way she'd looked at Emma, about the job that would change everything for us. I was standing at the edge of that cliff again. But this time, I was ready to jump. Monday morning arrived with the kind of gray, drizzling rain that seemed to seep into your bones. I dropped Emma off at school and drove to work with my stomach in knots, second-guessing my decision for the 100th time since Saturday night. The Meridian building looked different somehow, more imposing now that I knew I'd be working on the 30th floor. I took the elevator up, clutching my coffee like a lifeline. Victoria's assistant, my predecessor, was a polished woman named Catherine, who looked like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. She spent the morning showing me the ropes, Victoria's calendar system, her preferences for travel arrangements, how she liked her coffee, black, no sugar, and the intricate dance of managing a CEO's daily life. She's demanding but fair, Catherine said as we went through filing systems. She expects perfection, but she's not unreasonable. Just don't take anything personally. She can be cold when she's focused. By lunch, my head was spinning with information. Victoria had been in meetings all morning, so I hadn't seen her except for a brief nod when she passed my new desk outside her office. At 2 o'clock, she emerged from a conference call looking frustrated. "Sarah, I need you to reschedule my dinner with the Morrison Group. Something's come up." "Of course. When would you like to reschedule?" "Next week sometime. And cancel my 4 o'clock with legal. I need to leave early today." She disappeared back into her office, and I spent the next hour juggling phone calls and calendar changes. This job was definitely more complex than filing papers in a cubicle. At 4:30, Victoria came out of her office carrying her briefcase and looking distracted. "I'm leaving for the day. If anything urgent comes up, call my cell." "Is everything okay?" I asked, before I could stop myself. She paused, looking at me with an expression I couldn't read. "Family emergency. I'll see you tomorrow." She left. And I spent the rest of the day wondering what kind of family emergency could make Victoria Chen look so shaken. The next morning, Victoria was already in her office when I arrived at 8. Through her glass door, I could see her on the phone, her posture tense. She stayed in there most of the morning, taking calls and looking increasingly stressed. At 11, she buzzed my desk. "Sarah, could you come in here, please?" I found her standing by her window, staring out at the city. She looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept. "Is there anything I can do?" I asked. She turned around, and I was shocked to see tears in her eyes. Victoria Chen, powerful, untouchable Victoria Chen, was crying. "My father had a stroke," she said quietly. "He's in the hospital in San Francisco." My heart clenched. "Oh my God, Victoria, I'm so sorry. I need to fly out there today. Can you handle rearranging my schedule for the rest of the week?" "Of course. Whatever you need." She nodded, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "I'm sorry. I don't break down at work. You don't need to apologize. This is your father we're talking about." Something in my voice made her look at me more closely. "You understand." It wasn't a question. "I lost my dad when I was 22. Cancer." Victoria's expression crumbled slightly. "I'm sorry. It's the hardest thing I've ever been through. But you get through it. Whatever happens, you get through it." She nodded, taking a shaky breath. "I should go pack. I'll take care of everything here. Don't worry about work." She gathered her things and headed for the door, then stopped and turned back. "Sarah, thank you." After she left, I spent the day canceling meetings, rearranging appointments, and fielding calls from concerned board members. It felt strange to be managing Victoria's professional life while she dealt with something so personal. That evening, as I was getting ready to leave, my phone buzzed with a text from Victoria. "Dad's stable. Surgery went well. Thank you for handling everything," I typed back. "I'm glad he's okay. Take care of yourself." Her response came a few minutes later. "I don't know what I would have done without you today." The message made my chest tight with emotion. I was falling for her, and I was falling hard. Victoria was gone for the rest of the week. I managed her schedule, handled her correspondence, and tried not to think about how much I missed seeing her every day. It was ridiculous. I'd only been working for her for a few days, but her absence left a hole in my routine that I hadn't expected. Friday afternoon, Catherine stopped by my desk. "You're doing a great job," she said. "Victoria's lucky to have you." "Thank you. I'm still learning." "Can I give you some advice?" Catherine sat down in the chair across from my desk. "Victoria doesn't let people in easily. She's been hurt before, professionally and personally. But when she does trust someone, she's incredibly loyal." I wasn't sure what to say to that, so I just nodded. "I think she trusts you," Catherine continued. "That's rare for her." That evening, I was making dinner for Emma when my phone rang. Victoria's name appeared on the screen. "Hi," I answered, stepping into the hallway so Emma wouldn't overhear. "Hi." Victoria's voice sounded tired but relieved. "I wanted to call and thank you again for this week. You've been incredible. How's your father?" "Better. He's going to need physical therapy, but the doctors think he'll make a full recovery." "That's wonderful news. I'll be back Monday. There's something I want to talk to you about." My stomach fluttered. "Okay." "Sarah?" Her voice was softer now, more intimate. "Yeah?" I missed you this week. The admission hung between us like a confession. I missed you too. After we hung up, I leaned against the wall and tried to calm my racing heart. This was getting complicated fast. Monday morning, Victoria was back in the office, looking more like herself, but with something different in her eyes, something vulnerable that hadn't been there before. "Good morning," she said as she passed my desk. "Welcome back. How are you feeling?" "Better? Could you come into my office in about an hour? There's something we need to discuss." The hour crawled by. When I finally knocked on her door, I found her sitting at her desk with a serious expression. "Close the door," she said. I did, then sat down across from her, my heart hammering. "This week made me realize something," she began. "When my father was in the hospital, when I was scared and alone, the only person I wanted to talk to was you." I stared at her, not sure where this was going. "I've been thinking about what's happening between us, and I think we need to address it directly." "Okay," I whispered. She stood up and walked around the desk, leaning against it in front of me. "I'm attracted to you, Sarah, more than attracted. I think about you constantly, and it's affecting my ability to focus on work." My mouth went dry. "Victoria, let me finish." She held up a hand. "I know this is complicated. I know there are professional boundaries we're crossing. But I can't pretend anymore that this is just a working relationship." I stood up, my legs unsteady. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I want to be with you. Really be with you. Not just dinner, not just professional courtesy. I want to know what it feels like to wake up next to you, to come home to you, to be part of your life and Emma's life." The words hit me like a physical blow. Everything I'd been feeling, everything I'd been afraid to admit, was reflected in her eyes. "But," I said, because there was always a but. Victoria's expression faltered. "But I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can be what you need, what Emma needs. I've never been in a relationship with someone who has a child. I work 80 hours a week. I travel constantly. My life is complicated and demanding and—" "Victoria." I stepped closer to her, close enough to see the fear in her eyes. "Are you asking me out, or are you breaking up with me before we've even started?" She laughed, a sound caught between humor and tears. "I don't know. Both, maybe." I reached out and took her hands, surprised by how cold they were. "What happened to the woman who told me she wanted to find out what was happening between us?" She got scared. "Of what?" Victoria looked down at our joined hands. "Of hurting you. Of disappointing you. Of not being enough." My heart broke a little at the vulnerability in her voice. "Victoria, look at me." She raised her eyes to mine. "I'm scared too. I'm terrified actually, but I'm also falling in love with you. And that scares me more than anything else." Her breath caught. "Sarah, I know this is complicated. I know there are no guarantees, but I also know that I've never felt about anyone the way I feel about you." We stood there for a long moment, hands clasped, staring into each other's eyes. Then Victoria pulled away. "I need time to think," she said. "This is all happening so fast, and I don't want to make a mistake that hurts both of us." The rejection hit me like a slap. "Of course, I understand." But I didn't understand. I didn't understand how someone could look at you like you were everything they'd ever wanted and then ask for time to think about it. I turned to leave, but Victoria's voice stopped me. "Sarah, this isn't about you. This is about me, and my own fears and insecurities." I looked back at her, this powerful woman who seemed to have everything but was somehow more lost than I was. "I know," I said quietly, "but that doesn't make it hurt any less." I left her office and somehow made it through the rest of the day, answering phones and scheduling meetings while my heart felt like it was breaking into 1,000 pieces. That night, I tucked Emma into bed and then sat in my living room, staring at the wall and wondering how I'd managed to fall so hard for someone so completely wrong for me. My phone buzzed with a text. "I'm sorry. I just need some time to figure this out. V." I stared at the message until the screen went dark, then set the phone aside and let myself cry for the first time in months. The next 2 weeks were torture. Victoria was polite, but distant, treating me like any other employee. She said please and thank you, discussed work matters in a professional tone, and avoided any personal conversation. It was like the woman who had confessed her feelings to me had never existed. I threw myself into work, determined to prove that I could handle the professional relationship, even if the personal one was falling apart. I managed her calendar flawlessly, anticipated her needs, and made myself indispensable in every way I could think of. But every night, I went home feeling hollow. Emma noticed my mood, of course. Kids always do. "Mommy, are you sad about your work friend?" she asked one evening as I helped her with homework. "What work friend, baby? The pretty lady from the market. You've been sad since you started your new job." I forced a smile. "I'm not sad, sweetheart, just tired." But Emma was too smart to buy that explanation. On Thursday of the second week, everything changed. I was at my desk, reviewing Victoria's travel itinerary for the following week, when I heard raised voices coming from her office. The door was closed, but the argument was loud enough to carry through the glass. "Completely unacceptable, Victoria. The board is questioning your judgment." I recognized the voice as Richard Morrison, the chairman of the board. Through the glass, I could see him gesturing angrily while Victoria sat behind her desk, her posture rigid. "My personal life is not the board's concern," Victoria said, her voice ice-cold. "It is when it affects company morale and your ability to lead effectively. There are rumors, Victoria, rumors about you and your assistant." My blood turned to ice. I tried to look busy with my computer, but I could feel other employees glancing in my direction. "What rumors?" Victoria's voice was dangerously quiet. "That you're having an inappropriate relationship with an employee, that you promoted her for personal reasons, that you're compromising the integrity of this company for—" "Get out!" Victoria stood up, her hands flat on her desk. "Get out of my office right now, Victoria. Be reasonable." I said, "Get out." Richard Morrison stormed out of Victoria's office, his face red with anger. He glanced at me as he passed my desk, his expression making it clear that he knew exactly who the rumors were about. Victoria's door slammed shut behind him. I sat at my desk, my hands shaking, trying to process what I'd just heard. Rumors, people were talking about us, speculating about our relationship. And now the board was involved. My phone buzzed with an internal call. "Sarah, could you come in here, please?" Victoria's voice was carefully controlled, but I could hear the strain underneath. I walked into her office on unsteady legs. Victoria was standing by her window again, her back to me. "Close the door," she said, without turning around. I did, then stood there waiting for her to speak. "I suppose you heard that," she said finally. "Some of it." She turned around, and I was shocked by how pale she looked. "The board thinks we're having an affair, are we?" The question slipped out before I could stop it. Victoria stared at me for a long moment. "I don't know what we are, Victoria." "This is exactly what I was afraid of," she said, starting to pace. "This is why I needed time to think. I knew this would happen." "So what are you going to do?" She stopped pacing and looked at me with an expression that made my stomach drop. "I think you should transfer back to your old position." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What?" "It's the only way to stop the rumors. If we're not working together directly, people will lose interest." "You're demoting me?" "Because people are gossiping. I'm protecting both of us." "No," I said, my voice rising. "You're running away. Again." Victoria's eyes flashed. "I'm being practical. You're being a coward." The words hung between us like a slap. Victoria's face went white, then red. "How dare you? How dare I what? Tell you the truth." I stepped closer to her, my fear replaced by anger. "You want me, but you're too scared to admit it. You care about me, but you're too worried about what other people think to do anything about it. You don't understand the position I'm in. And then explain it to me. Stop treating me like I'm some naive child who can't handle the complexities of your important life." Victoria stared at me, her chest rising and falling rapidly. "You want the truth? Fine. The truth is that I'm falling in love with you, and it terrifies me. The truth is that I think about you every morning when I wake up and every night before I go to sleep. The truth is that I want to be part of your life and Emma's life so badly it physically hurts." My anger deflated, replaced by something that made my chest tight. Then why? Because I don't know how to do this, Victoria's voice cracked. I don't know how to be in a relationship. I don't know how to be a stepmother. I don't know how to balance a demanding career with a personal life. And I'm terrified that I'll mess it up and hurt you and Emma in the process. I stared at her, seeing past the CEO facade to the scared woman underneath. Victoria, nobody knows how to do this. Relationships aren't something you can plan and strategize like a business deal. But what if I'm not good at it? What if I can't give you what you need? I walked over to her, close enough to see the tears threatening to spill from her eyes. What if you can? She looked at me like I was offering her something she'd never dared to hope for. The rumors, she whispered. The board. Screw the board, I said firmly. And screw the rumors. People are going to talk no matter what we do. The question is, are we going to let them dictate our lives? Victoria reached out tentatively, her fingers brushing my cheek. I don't want to lose you. Then stop trying to push me away. She leaned forward, resting her forehead against mine. I'm scared, Sarah. So am I. But I'd rather be scared with you than safe without you. Victoria pulled back to look at me, and I saw the moment she made her decision. The fear was still there, but it was overshadowed by something stronger. Okay, she said softly. Okay? Okay, let's try this. Let's see what happens. Before I could respond, she kissed me. It was soft and tentative at first, then deeper as I kissed her back. She tasted like coffee and possibility. And when we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. What about the board? I asked. I'll handle the board. Richard Morrison doesn't get to dictate who I care about. And the rumors? Victoria smiled, the first real smile I'd seen from her in weeks. Let them talk. I'm done hiding. That evening, Victoria insisted on driving me home. As we pulled up in front of my building, she turned to me with a nervous expression. Would it be okay if I met Emma? Properly, I mean. Not just a chance encounter at the farmer's market. My heart did that fluttering thing again. You want to meet Emma? I want to be part of your life, Sarah. All of it. That includes your daughter. I thought about Emma's excitement when she'd talked about the pretty lady from the market, about how she'd said she liked Victoria. She'd love that, I said. But Victoria, you should know that Emma comes first. Always. If this doesn't work out. It will work out, Victoria said with a conviction that surprised me. I won't let it not work out. As I walked up to my apartment, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. Victoria Chen, powerful, beautiful, complicated Victoria Chen, was willing to fight for us, and for the first time since this whole thing started, I believed we might actually have a chance. 6 months later, I stood in the kitchen of Victoria's penthouse apartment, watching through the floor-to-ceiling windows as she and Emma played in the building's rooftop garden. Emma was showing Victoria how to plant seeds in the small garden plot Victoria had created just for her, both of them covered in dirt and laughing. It hadn't been easy getting here. The board had initially pushed back against our relationship, but Victoria had stood firm. She'd made it clear that her personal life was not up for corporate approval, and that anyone who had a problem with it could find another company to work for. The rumors had eventually died down, especially after people saw how professional we remained at work. Victoria was still demanding, still expected perfection, and I still delivered it. The only difference was that now, when she looked at me across a conference room, there was warmth in her eyes that hadn't been there before. Emma had taken to Victoria immediately, which shouldn't have surprised me. Victoria had a way with children that she claimed not to understand, but I could see it clearly. She listened to Emma like her 7-year-old opinions were the most important things in the world. She remembered every detail about Emma's school play, her friends, her dreams of becoming a veterinarian, and slowly, carefully, Victoria had become part of our family. "Mommy!" Emma called from the garden. "Come see what we planted." I walked out onto the rooftop, the city sprawling below us like a glittering carpet. Emma grabbed my hand and pulled me over to the garden plot. "We planted tomatoes and carrots and flowers," she announced proudly. "Victoria says we can make salad when they grow." "That sounds wonderful, baby." I looked at Victoria, who was brushing dirt off her hands. She wore jeans and an old t-shirt, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked nothing like the intimidating CEO I'd first met, and everything like the woman I'd fallen in love with. "I should probably get cleaned up," Victoria said, glancing at her dirt-stained clothes. "We have dinner reservations in an hour." "Can we eat here instead?" Emma asked. "I want to stay with the plants." Victoria and I exchanged a look. We'd planned a nice dinner at that Italian restaurant where we'd had our first date. But Emma's request was hard to resist. "What do you think?" Victoria asked me. "Pizza and a movie night?" "I think that sounds perfect." While Victoria went to shower and change, I helped Emma wash her hands and face. She chattered about the garden, about school, about the dog she still hoped we'd get someday. "Mommy," she said as I dried her hands, "are you and Victoria going to get married?" The question caught me off guard. "Why do you ask that, sweetheart?" "Because you love each other. And because she makes you happy." You smile more now. I knelt down to Emma's level, looking into her serious brown eyes. "Would you like that? If Victoria and I got married?" Emma nodded enthusiastically. "Then, she could be my other mommy, and we could live here all the time. And I could have the garden and maybe a dog." "Maybe," I said, kissing her forehead. "We'll see what happens." But as I said it, I realized that the idea didn't scare me anymore. 6 months ago, the thought of marriage would have terrified me. Now, it felt like a natural next step. Victoria emerged from her bedroom wearing soft pajama pants and a tank top, her hair still damp from the shower. She looked young and relaxed, nothing like the powerful executive who commanded boardrooms and made million-dollar decisions. "Pizza's on the way," she announced. "And I have ice cream for dessert." Emma cheered and ran to the living room to pick out a movie. Victoria walked over to me, slipping her arms around my waist. "Thank you," she said softly. "For what?" "For this. For Emma. For giving me a family I never thought I'd have." I leaned into her embrace, breathing in the scent of her shampoo. "Thank you for being brave enough to try." "I wasn't brave. I was terrified. Sometimes being brave means doing something even when you're terrified." Victoria pulled back to look at me, her dark eyes serious. "Sarah, there's something I want to ask you." My heart started beating faster. "Okay." She took a deep breath, then reached into her pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "Oh my God," I whispered. "I know it's only been 6 months," she said quickly. "I know it's fast, and I know we still have things to figure out. But I also know that I love you and Emma more than I ever thought possible. I know that I want to wake up next to you every morning for the rest of my life. I know that I want to be Emma's other mom, if she'll have me." She opened the box, revealing a simple but beautiful diamond ring. "Sarah Martinez, will you marry me?" I stared at the ring, then at Victoria's face, seeing all the love and hope and fear written there. In the background I could hear Emma laughing at something on TV, the sound of our daughter enjoying a perfect evening. Our daughter. Because that's what Emma had become to Victoria, and Victoria to Emma. "Yes," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Yes, of course, yes." Victoria's face broke into the most beautiful smile I'd ever seen. She slipped the ring onto my finger with shaking hands, then kissed me with a passion that made my knees weak. "Mommy! Victoria! The movie's starting!" Emma called from the living room. We broke apart, both of us laughing and crying at the same time. "Should we tell her?" Victoria asked. "Let's wait until after the movie," I said. "Let her have this perfect evening first." We walked into the living room hand in hand, my new ring catching the light from the city below. Emma had chosen a Disney movie, of course, and she patted the couch between her and Victoria. "Sit here, Mommy. Victoria, you sit there." I settled between them, Victoria's arm around my shoulders, Emma curled up against my side. The pizza arrived just as the movie started, and we ate it straight from the box, laughing at Emma's commentary on the characters. Halfway through the movie, Emma fell asleep against my shoulder. Victoria gently lifted her and carried her to the guest room that had become Emma's room, tucking her in with the stuffed elephant Victoria had bought her on their second date together. "She's perfect," Victoria whispered as we stood in the doorway watching Emma sleep. "She loves you, you know," I said. "She asked me earlier if we were going to get married." Victoria's eyes widened. "What did you tell her?" I told her we'd see what happens. I held up my hand, the ring sparkling in the dim light. I guess now we know. Victoria pulled me close, kissing me softly. I love you, Sarah. Both of you. More than I ever thought possible. I love you too. We walked back to the living room, turning off the TV and cleaning up the pizza boxes. Through the windows, the city lights twinkled like stars. And I thought about how much my life had changed since that morning in the parking lot, when I'd left a note on a stranger's car. Do you ever regret it? Victoria asked, as if reading my thoughts. That day in the parking lot? I thought about it seriously. The anxiety, the fear, the complications that had followed, the rumors, the board meetings, the uncertainty. Then I thought about Emma's laughter, about Victoria's smile, about the family we'd built together against all odds. Never, I said firmly. Not for a single second. Victoria smiled, pulling me into her arms. Good. Because I have a feeling this is just the beginning. As we stood there in the quiet apartment, holding each other while our daughter slept peacefully down the hall, I knew she was right. This was just the beginning of our story. And I couldn't wait to see what came next. The next morning, we told Emma about the engagement over breakfast. She screamed with joy, threw her arms around both of us, and immediately started planning the wedding. Can I be the flower girl? Can we have cake? Can we get a dog now? Victoria and I laughed, exchanging a look over Emma's head. Yes to the flower girl and the cake, Victoria said. We'll talk about the dog. I love you, Victoria, Emma said seriously. I'm glad you're going to be my other mommy. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. I love you too, sweetheart. More than you know. Later, as we got ready for work, I caught Victoria looking at herself in the mirror with the expression of wonder. What are you thinking about? I asked. Just this, us. A year ago, I was alone in this apartment every night, working until midnight and wondering if this was all there was to life. She turned to me, her eyes bright. And now I have you and Emma, and I'm getting married, and I'm going to be a mom. Any regrets? She kissed me, soft and sweet and full of promise. Only that it took me so long to be brave enough to try. As we rode the elevator down to the parking garage, I thought about courage and love and the unexpected ways life can change in an instant. I thought about honest notes left on strangers' cars, and how sometimes the smallest acts of integrity can lead to the biggest transformations. And I thought about Victoria Chen, the woman who'd been brave enough to love me back, even when it scared her. The elevator doors opened, and we stepped out into our future together.